Well, hey there, idiots. Welcome back to Observe. If you have been on the channel for a minute, you know that I tend to stay very clear of political videos, as I have found the realm of politics to just be filled with countless egotistical hot air balloons whoopee cushioning their nonsense at anyone and everyone who will listen. In my experience, the question in politics is not if someone is lying, but more so rather what they are lying about. Now, I don't know that I'll officially start dipping my toes into the proverbial waters of that cesspool more regularly, but a series of events have played out recently that have piqued my interest to an extent and definitely piqued the interest of you watching, and it has to do with one of the most powerful men in the world, one of the richest men in the world, and one of the most hated men in the world. That would be Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Jeffrey Epstein. More on that in just a second. Let's go ahead and roll our intro first. In order to get a clearer idea of this situation that I'm talking about today, I'll add some context for you. Jeffrey Edward Epstein, a financier with extensive social and business connections, was first criminally investigated in the mid-2000s or so. In 2008, he pled guilty in a Florida state court to procuring a minor for prostitution and soliciting prostitution. That conviction came as a part of a controversial plea deal, one that granted Epstein federal immunity despite evidence indicating that he had sexually abused dozens of underage girls. Fast forward to July 6th, 2019, Epstein was arrested again, this time at an airport in New Jersey, upon returning to the States from Paris. He was charged federally in the Southern District of New York with sex trafficking of minors and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking. The indictment detailed that Epstein, from at least 2002 through 2005, operated a trafficking ring out of his residences in Manhattan and Palm Beach, where he allegedly paid girls as young as 14 for sex, then encouraged them to recruit others, forming what prosecutors called a vast network. Court documents state that Epstein's employees facilitated the system, scheduling appointments and paying victims in cash. Victims were often from vulnerable backgrounds, lured by promises of money or education or career advancement. Many were allegedly assaulted multiple times as well. The indictment further notes that Epstein maintained a black book of contacts and used his wealth to exert influence over the victims' silence, more or less. After his arrest, Epstein was denied bail due to flight risk concerns and held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City. On August 10th of 2019, Epstein was found dead in his jail cell. The official cause of death was ruled suicide by hanging. However, court filings, autopsy reports, and Bureau of Prisons records sparked public interest and congressional scrutiny over procedural failures and lapses in jail oversight, including possibly broken cameras and understaffing at the facility itself. In January of 2024, several years later, a federal judge unsealed hundreds of pages of previously confidential court documents. These filings included depositions, exhibits, and communications that identified over 150 individuals by name, many of whom were labeled John Does in earlier versions. The documents included sworn testimonies from victims as well as evidence that Epstein coordinated with associates to manage his trafficking operation. Some documents reference surveillance systems in his homes and describe a methodical effort to track and control the victims' movements. It's important to note that many individuals named in these files have denied any level of wrongdoing, and some inclusions were based solely on associations or appearances in contact logs, not direct allegations. The courts have emphasized that unsealed names are not equivalent to proof of criminal behavior. One such person who has attempted to avoid any attribution with Epstein despite evidence for the contrary is Donald Trump. While this was initially as inconsequential of a dodge as any of the other people accused of fraternizing with Epstein, things grew a little bit more curious thanks to Elon Musk. If one were to take a snapshot, say, of the relationship between Trump and Elon during the first few months of this year, the year of 2025 here, it would be easy to determine the closeness between the two of them. However, after a number of disagreements, Musk posted to X, or Twitter as we all still call it, stating that the reason that the Epstein files had not actually been released was because they included evidence of Trump's involvement in Epstein's illegal activities. This statement did not come out of the blue, however, as Trump and Epstein have had a not so insignificant history of interactions, which I have now attempted to compile here for you. Court filings confirm that Trump and Epstein enjoyed a social connection beginning in the late 1980s and continuing on through the early 2000s or so. A 1992 video shows them together at a party. Trump later told New York Magazine, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He likes beautiful women as much as I do." Epstein himself claimed in a 2017 recording that he was Donald's closest friend for 10 years. Documentation shows Epstein's black book and flight logs included Trump's contact info, and one flight on Epstein's private plane from West Palm Beach to New York has been verified. However, there are no released court records that I could at least locate that indicate Trump's presence on Epstein's private island or in Lolita Express flights. There are a few reports as to why the friendship unraveled back in 2004, however. The most credible reason circulating claimed it was due to a bidding conflict over a Palm Beach mansion. This indicated that Trump's acquisition marked their last known interaction in legal documents. In 2016 and 2017, an anonymous plaintiff filed civil suits in federal court alleging she had been sexually assaulted by Epstein and Trump in 1994 at Epstein's Manhattan residence when she was only 13, but both suits were promptly dismissed. Epstein's arrest in July of 2019 and subsequent death returned attention to his past relationships. Trump publicly stated in July of 2019, "I knew him, like everybody in Palm Beach knew him," and he said he was not a fan of Epstein. Trump also claimed that he cut ties with Epstein after he was banned from Mar-a-Lago in 2007 for pursuing younger women, though this detail was recorded in court filings as an unverified rumor. Court releases in early 2024 and 2025 revealed depositions, flight logs, and contact lists including Trump's name, though none allege any criminal conduct on his part. As reported by the Washington Post, the unsealing identified Trump among many names in Epstein's documents, but further clarified that his presence did not equate to his participation. With Elon's recent statement of Trump and Epstein's mutual involvement, public scrutiny has revitalized, to say the least. A joint Department of Justice and FBI review released new memos and nearly 11 hours of surveillance footage stating that there is no evidence of a client list, blackmail scheme, or murder of Epstein, and reaffirming his suspicious 2019 death as a suicide. The review acknowledges Trump's name appears in association with the records, but does not allege any wrongdoing or criminal involvement of any kind. In June to July of 2025, House Democrats called on Attorney General Pam Bondi to declassify Epstein-related documents, citing Elon Musk's claim that a hidden file implicates Trump. Subsequent DOJ statements clarified that no further documents will be released, reiterating that there are are no charges or allegations to be linked to Trump and others. While this does seem to conveniently tie the entire travesty up with a bow, many are finding too many things to seem too suspiciously convenient. With that in mind, many have also requested that I analyze the footage of Trump responding to questions put forth by a reporter in regards to Epstein. Now, with all of this context out of the way, I think it's time for us to get started.
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries of...
Only a couple seconds in, so as soon as the mention of Jeffrey Epstein comes in there from Trump, we immediately see a prolonged flickering eye blink. That means extra processing, and the prolonged eye blink in there is the possibility of what's known as an eye-blocking gesture, a desire to separate oneself from what's being talked about or being said or the emotion, what have you. So we see that coming in there. The flickering eye blink lets us know that he's kicking into a new gear of processing, and the prolonged blink lets us know that there's a level of separation that he's gonna want to draw between himself and what's being spoken about here, in this case Epstein. Let's see how it continues.
One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape?
Gonna go ahead and pause here. So another thing that we've just noticed from Trump's on this side of thing, everybody else seems to be fairly astutely just listening to the question itself. Trump has been giving off a couple of different nonverbal cues here, but we also just see him do a reposturing. He sits back a bit and you can see him adjust in his chair. That lets us know that he is about to respond. He's switching from the role of listening to the role of responding to this. And while he's not the first to respond, sure enough, we'll see that actually play out as well. Non-verbally speaking, though Trump has been in front of many cameras on multiple occasions for many, many years here, both in his time as a television presence and also as a leader of the country, he has been regularly in front of cameras. Even with that, we're able to see that he has a tendency to still portray some of the nonverbal communication that we have seen here on repeat on the channel and other channels here on the internet. Also, something that I just want to make note of before we continue too deep down into this is that Spidey over at the Behavioral Arts channel has already done a review and an analysis on this. If you would like even more context around this than what I'm providing for you here, I heavily suggest you go and watch his video. I have not personally watched it myself as of yet. He just recently released it, but I do trust his opinion and how he states things and his resources and how he backs up the evidence that he presents. So definitely go and check that video out as well if you want even more context around this. But regardless, we're seeing a little bit non-verbally already from this. Now let's see how the response to this question it plays out here. Let's see.
Yeah, sure. If I
Now,
could,
could I just interrupt for
Sure.
a second? Are you
Okay, so Trump interrupts the person who's about to start speaking on this, and he does so with a pointer finger, which if you've been on the channel for a minute, you know that the pointer finger is a domination gesture. Now that can be emotionally driven, even if a person isn't above another person in any level. If they're feeling angry or heated or something along those lines, we'll see that coming out. It's centered around domination. So we're seeing Trump trying to take dominion over this little scenario here. He interrupts somebody, and then he immediately switches to a very controlled and overt defensive gesture, both palms forward and lightly down. And this is usually centered around wanting to quell and defend off something. So we're seeing that come in here, and it is fairly trained. This isn't something that is outside of Trump's normal behavioral context. He does this sort of gesture rather regularly, and it can be coached in there. It's also coached in to be able to be more open. However, I do find it fascinating that he goes from domination to defensive right off the bat. Both of these can be coached to nonverbal communication displays, but it is still something to be able to make note of. Now let's hear what he says.
are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
So now what he's done is he's done a diversion of attention. He's trying to manipulate around from this question while simultaneously also attacking the psychological credibility of anybody still asking about it. He says that asking questions in regard to Epstein, which is still rather applicable. There has been a lot of haziness, fogginess, secrecy, what have you, around this entire Epstein investigation. And so it does still make sense that people are asking important questions around it. But the fact that his immediate thing is to discredit the psychological stability or reliability of a person asking those questions, and then also trying to divert to other things that yes, it's true, but also even in the fact that the other things are happening and this is when that report came out is in and of itself a red flag. If there are other huge national events that are happening that are drawing everybody's attention around, that's a perfect time to release something that might be shady or shifty because everybody else is paying attention to more important things. So we're doing two different manipulation tactics here, which I'm not a huge fan of. If there is the ability to respond genuinely to a question, the immediate response should not be manipulation. But again, this just falls into politics for me. It seems as though as soon as there is a straightforward question asked, anybody and everybody likes to respond by manipulation and low-lying deceit. So the fact that it's existing here is not surprising to me, but I might as well end up calling it out. So he's devalued that while trying to also bring light to anything else that can draw attention away from that to manipulation points.
That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems...
As he's talking in regards to this question, he has two primary emotions that are playing across his face. One is contempt. You could see that coming through on the lower half of his face. And he even backs that up by his words of being like, can't believe you're asking all this. There's other things. I can't believe you're doing this. And he's talking down to the reporter for asking this rather pertinent question. And then in the upper half of his face, we're seeing the narrowing of the eyes, and that's related to contempt or scorn. And so those two combine together with his defensiveness. We're seeing aggression and defensiveness immediately come out in play with verbal manipulation in regards to this question. To me, that trio that has come out here does not serve Trump well. For me, it exclusively raises red flags. We're also going to pay attention to how the speaker responds to this as well, not just Trump. So let's watch.
Like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
So during this area, you hear the force behind her words increase a little bit. She has a little bit more strain as she's pushing her words out a little bit more. And that is synchronized with some more aggressive movements. She's been a little bit more subdued, but as she starts talking about this file, you could see her starting to become more animated. This is all in the vein of anger, frustration, something along those lines. So we're seeing some frustration from now two different parties in regards to this question. Now, to be able to play both sides of this can be defensiveness. A person is more likely to become angry and aggressive when they're feeling attacked in a way that they don't feel they can back up. It can also be because if they've received these questions on repeat, it might be frustrating at this point, so they're feeling frustrated by longevity and repetition. So both of those are possible here. It's complex, to be sure. To me, it pushes a little bit more cynicism and skepticism towards what they're presenting here, that, oh, everything's fine, and he was fine, and even though he was seemed to be a little bit of a whistleblower at the end, and then suddenly apparently died, it's all good. Like everything is on, we're all on the same page. To me, that seems a little bit forced and a little bit of a band-aid. So let's continue on through and see how the rest of this goes through.
Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day.
We're still hearing the aggression. There's not really a need for aggression in this area. And then that Jeffrey Epstein, that verbal separation, there's a desire to separate themselves from in here to that Jeffrey Epstein over there, despite the very clear historical connection between at least some of the people on the screen at the time, between, Epstein and, them. But we're hearing more of that aggression, and we're hearing some of that verbal separation. And then to me, even though they were saying it's centered around child porn, that can be true. Sure, that the videos could be centered around child pornography, that does not mean that the videos themselves, one, don't include other people involved, which just blanketing it and saying it's child porn, it's never going to be released, is still providing protection to anybody else who might be featured in said videos. So to me, I have some questions just around that. Again, we're having 2 points of aggression. We're having defensiveness, overt defensiveness and manipulation from one side. We're hearing a little bit of dodgy verbal communication on the other side here, but it's mainly this aggression that has come out, and we still have some to go through.
To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night.
During this time, something that I noticed from the speaker here is she starts to fall apart verbally with her cadence. She starts having substantial pauses in there and fumbles her words a little bit more. She's talking about the circumstances in the footage leading up to Epstein's suicide, which we have to take them at their word. And for me, being skeptical of all politics, I find it extremely fascinating and convenient. If there was some information that Epstein had, it's awfully convenient that he just suddenly, after succeeding at getting this plea deal, at that point, he then is like, you know what, I'm going to commit suicide. While still having this information, he was going to start talking and suddenly he's not able to anymore. It's awfully convenient for people who might be complicit in some of the activities. And then something else that she does is she then, at this point, checks in with Trump. She looks over and she's talking to Trump at this point, and that reassurance is fascinating to me. If this is concrete factual, then why do you need Trump's reassurance to be able to say this? Maybe there's some sort of power play in there that we're unaware of. Maybe she draws some sort of resolution from Trump that we're not privy on, or something along those lines here. Regardless, she checks in with him in a way that it shows that he's the driving force behind these words, because as she's saying these things, you can see him nod in affirmation to what she's saying. So to me, that lets me know that what she's saying is what Trump's saying, and what Trump's saying is in question in general because of the history and what a person very close to him revealed after there was a split in that relationship. Now, obviously, splits in any relationship, be it business or romantic or friendship, what have you, any split can inspire incorrect facts or opinions to start flying rampant. So we can't just look at what Elon said and be like, oh, well, he said it, so he must be telling the truth, because he very well could have just been lying because he felt vengeful or something along those lines. That also being said, the way that they are handling this is suspicious non-verbally. It's a complex mess, to be sure, and again, part of why I have avoided politics for so long.
Showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
And then at the end there, that's it on Epstein. There's a nod with that in there. It's fairly overt, it's fairly macro, so she's probably just hammering that home. But then there's a smile afterwards, which the smile is lopsided, very so slightly, which lets us know there's some contempt in there as well. So there's this feeling of scorn, contempt, superiority in regards to this question. There's manipulation, there's defensiveness, there's aggression. All of this in response to the question about Epstein. And again, conveniently, just out of the blue, after Elon has thrown this accusation towards Trump, only then is the DOJ and FBI able to be like, oh, actually, everything was nothing's bad. You know, everything's good. We're all fine. Everything's fine, really. Let's just look anywhere else. So to me, again, trying to stay as absent from political stuff as I possibly can. This is extremely suspicious to me. I would be suspicious if anybody responded this way to this sort of questioning. But, I mean, there are so many other people that are very steeped in the political realms. So if you are one of those people and you have some extra information, let me know in the comments of this video. I've let you know what I have seen and my suspicions around it, and as much of the backstory as I could curate for you. But I know that there's things that I can miss. So let me know in the comments below, especially if you feel like it's important, useful, but those are my thoughts, and that's all that I've got for the day. My name is Logan, and you have been oh so awesome as you always are, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.
you.